Good morning, good afternoon, depending where you're tuning in from, and if you're on demand, whatever time it is, thank you so much for joining us for our July edition of the Jamf Security Lounge. My name's Aaron Webb, and I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Jamf. And we welcome a very special guest today, or this afternoon, or this morning, to the Jamf Security Lounge, where we have a fireside chat and dive into all things security. So I want to welcome our very own CISO, Aaron Kiemele. So thank you very much for joining us, Aaron. Do you want to introduce yourself to the audience who may know you or may not know you, depending on how much they're familiar with Jamf?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, Aaron Kimberly. I've been at Jamf for 5 years as their Chief Information Security Officer. I've been in the security game for about 25 years total. One of the great things about security is you can come at it from a number of different angles. So I've been a network and a systems engineer, a project manager, a consultant. I've led compliance and security operations and architecture and trust. Security's been a great and varied career for me.
Excellent. So there's so much there for us to dive into, and I'm sure the audience are going to have questions. So if you've got any questions, do direct them to the comments section. We'll be keeping an eye on them throughout. Some we may pick up as we go along, others we may come to at the end. So if you've got any questions for us, please use the comments section. If we don't get to everything, we'll reach out to you afterwards. And also, we do have some live transcripts as well. So if you tune in from the US and you can't understand my accent, you're welcome to turn on the transcript. But thank you very much for joining us. And we'll dive into some of the chat that we've got today with Aaron. So we've got two Aarons today. That hopefully won't be confusing because there's only us two in the room. But such a great background, Aaron, that you've got there, and a rich expertise about all the insights of you being a CISO, which we really want to dive into and navigate, especially as the threat landscape's ever changing at the moment. We see that just sort of risks and the way of balancing what an organization needs to achieve and be productive, but also be resilient as well and be proactive in their approach to security. So let's jump straight into it. And the first question that I really want to ask you, so as a Chief Information Security Officer or a CISO here at Jamf, what are your primary responsibilities and roles within the organization?
So security can mean many different things in different organizations, but I think the easiest way to think about it is I'm responsible for security as an outcome. So overall, what are those outcomes? My role is to kind of bend the curve towards better behaviors and better attitudes, or that is to say, I'm here to enable the business to succeed. Security and privacy are everyone's responsibility. Everyone has a part to play. But my role and my team are here to facilitate that. Security moves really fast, so I try to build frameworks for success. I look at how best to support the business, how to balance against these emerging risks and operational effectiveness, and how to grow security thinking and security skills across the entire company.
I think that's great. And I think that's when we was RSA together back in San Francisco a few months back. And I saw you present the way in which you balance that need to speak to the organization, but that having that technical and that risk averseness that you protect the business was fantastic. And it's something that why I wanted to invite you on here today, because I think that's a fantastic skill that you have to balance both. One thing that struck me when you was presenting, how do you stay up to date with the latest security threats and trends in the industry?
I think this is a really critical part of security in all roles. Getting the knowledge you need and staying up to date is vital. I have the benefit of a team to help keep me informed in part, but really it goes back to the roots. Books are a great way to start. I'd be happy to post some of my favorites. YouTube is a game changer. There is no end to the value that you can mine out of YouTube. Check out conference sessions from Black Hat or RSA or DEF CON, or vendor sessions like Jamf's JNUC, for example. Lots out there to chew on. Podcasts, I like to listen to a lot of podcasts. The CISO series, Risky Business, Darknet Diaries. Again, look at your tech stack. For example, the Mac Admins podcast is another great place to get content on security and other topics. I think the key piece here is really to never stop learning. You know that your opposition, the evildoers out there, they're still learning. Your competitors are learning, so you can't fall behind.
Yeah, it's definitely a team game, and that community of sharing information, sharing best practice, sharing knowledge, the speed of keeping up to date and making sure that you're enabled and educated on those threats is paramount, really. And Darknet Diaries is one of my favorites. I listen to that often while I'm doing work in the background, and then I find myself listening more to that and thinking, "Wow, this is really interesting stuff." So I advocate for those as well.
Yeah, I think it's the big advantage that our side, let's say the corporate security, everyone who's trying to do right, the big advantage that we have over criminals is that we can have that community. We can have those learnings. Everyone wants to share that information.
Yeah, and I love that the fact that some of this is like educational and it's not scaring people. There obviously is a dark side to security, but there's obviously we want to make sure that we're having a proactive approach and not scaring our end users, because it's not about fear, it's about protecting you. But obviously there is a dark side to it as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what strategies and frameworks do you employ to ensure the overall security of the organization's information systems and data? Like, there's loads out there to choose from. Some organizations don't get to pick, they have to adhere to some. But how do you sort of approach all of those, especially with us being a global company as well?
Absolutely. I think the key for me is to pick a framework. It matters less what framework it is, but commit to a solid framework and really track progress. They can be compliance frameworks, ISO 27001 or SOC 2, UK Cyber Essentials, or better yet, if you have the opportunity to pick for yourself, you can pick a general maturity modeling framework like NIST's cybersecurity framework, the CSF framework. Like everything else, you need to take big problems and break them down into smaller problems that you can tackle. NIST CSF is really good at that. It takes the 5 major functions. In this case, it's defining them as identify and protect, defend, detect, respond, and recover. Those become 23 categories. They become 108 incremental pieces of work. So run yourself through it. You be real honest with yourself about your capabilities. Give yourself a hard time, but then roll it back up to look at the big picture. What functions are you good at? Where are you soft? What do you care about? What can you take on with the resources you have at hand? Start there with a solid framework. There's no finish line really, right? But climb up that ladder rung by rung, and start checking it off. You'll make it to the finish line.
I think that's a great point about taking the bits that you can do now. With every organization's got different budgets, different skill sets, and you just need to start, I think, and that's pick a framework and start to break it down into smaller steps.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the things that I've really resonated when I've been speaking to customers and prospects are some of the tools that can help you straight away. I know we've got a compliance editor that can help organizations really roll out the right profiles for their Apple fleet or for their Macs when they choose a framework. And it's something that Apple works very closely on the Mac compliance project that Jamf helps support. And I know little tools like that are just nuggets that can really help people on their journey to start being compliant and adhere to frameworks that they've chosen.
I think you'll find with these frameworks that you have strengths. It's easy to be fearful of security, but I'm certain there's things you do well that can be pivoted with a small amount of information, tools that you have that can help you on the journey as well.
And advice to someone who's in your position or has just gained that role of being like the security officer in their company, if they're a small business, do you start with an audit? Where would you start to even understand what you're good at or what you're doing? Do you just take a step back and look at everything rather than be overwhelmed, or what would your perspective be?
I think a good starting point is to run an audit on yourself. So pull a framework, whatever you choose, whatever you think you're going to be obligated to do. ISO 27001, for example, really focuses on governance, policies, and procedures. SOC 2, Cyber Essentials, they're often targeting individual controls and measurements. But take one of these frameworks and run yourself through it. It doesn't have to be all at once. Maybe it just, take a section in a week and answer 8 or 10 questions. Think about how you are performing against those controls or how you would measure it. Is it repeatable? Do you have a process? Do you just wing it? Do you tend to wing it, but your team is usually successful through heroism or hard work. All those things are benefits. Once you understand where you are, you can bring it forward to start incrementally improving each thing.
And I suppose it's a lot easier to start now before you have an attack or a threat or there's some sort of vulnerability that gets exposed, because then you've got to unpick that before you even start, and really you want to be proactive in that approach.
It is very easy to be motivated by having a disaster in your company, but we want to avoid that. And I think the key to avoiding it is picking compliance frameworks and using them to help drive security forward before you run into trouble.
And I think it's about layers, isn't it? It's about making sure that you've got those different layered approaches so that you can just build up on it. It's very much around having a step-by-step approach and ring fencing each piece, so it makes it super hard for someone to try and attack your business or take that vulnerable data or whatever you need to do to protect yourself. It's not about one big picture. It's those small steps and having that layered approach.
Yeah, 100%. Defense in depth is usually the terminology we use in security. But you never have just one thing protecting your treasures. You want layers, each point. That way, you can be resilient. Bad things happen. Failures happen. But you can be resilient because you know you have additional controls protecting you.
Yeah, and ideally, you just want to make it harder for anyone who's trying to attack your organization, just to slow them down, in effect, right? Just so you've got a chance to react to anything that might be happening.
Yes. In the end, there's very little you can do to prevent bad outcomes under the worst case scenarios. If nation states are attacking you, those kinds of things happen. You can't be overly judgmental. All you can do is do your best. But if you build a layered security, a defensible program where you've really gone through these frameworks, you've looked at all the issues they represent, you're doing a reasonably good job at all of them, you have good recovery planning, when bad things happen, you can roll with it. You can survive unscathed.
Yeah, and it's something that, again, we speak to customers and prospects a lot about with our trusted access framework and our stance that we take about enrolled devices, protected endpoints, trusted users. That trusted access and that ZTNA is something that's got a massive buzz around it at the moment, and I think it's that layered approach and slowing people down. And if there's a vulnerable device, it cuts off the user, and you're making sure that the right people are on the right devices. And it's such a layered approach to as you say, defense in depth.
Yeah, 100%.
So how do you manage the delicate balance between providing security solutions but then enabling business operations, especially when you're faced with requests for flexibility or convenience that might introduce security risks?
Yeah. Every choice is on a balance, right? Every decision has an opportunity cost and roads not taken. I think the key here is to see security as a part of the business, not separate from it. We're not primarily a technology team, although we express ourselves in technology very often, but we're a business enablement function. We're trying to help the business, supporting their goals and reducing risk to a manageable level where we can. You can't run in agitated and try to put everything in a vault, right? This is a long arc with business grinding to a halt at both sides. A bank vault is incredibly secure, but it can't handle very many transactions, and it's not a very inviting partner. But leaving the doors unlocked leads to equally little business getting done. So you seek to balance it. What is reasonable for your business?
And does that come, obviously Jamf, we've got Apple as our devices that we use. Does that make it harder because obviously Apple users want to have a bit more freedom? They want the admin rights on their machines. They're more likely to update to the latest OS when it drops from Apple's. Does that make it harder to balance versus someone who's in a Windows orientated environment or has been in a very much a security role where they've managed Windows, but they've got other devices now coming in and Apple's starting to come into their organization?
Sure. I think every environment is like that. Every environment has its unique elements. Now, certainly what you mentioned about Apple devices is totally true. They tend to have more local privilege. They tend to have more rights and ability to download applications and tools than a Windows environment might. But then again, there's an institutional advantage to having Apple. It is easier to secure with fewer tools. Jamf can certainly help you with that. It is easier to understand the failure conditions on an Apple device. There are fewer of them. While it sounds bad that people have local admin privilege and can download applications, it's not the same as a Windows environment, right? Every application is notarized. Everyone comes from a registered, a valid developer. There's a lot of controls making sure that that environment is safe. If you do have a Windows environment or you have a mixed environment, your problem set is a little bit different. Maybe you have to be a little bit more authoritarian about access on the device because the device itself can run many things that are unsanctioned or unreliable. Every environment is like this. Every security program needs to really think about its own use case and start building those layered defenses unique to your environment.
And I suppose it's about choosing the right tools for the right jobs, right? Because obviously Jamf does Apple very, very well, gold standard in managing and securing Apple. And we've got tools that are natively built for Apple frameworks and Apple tools. And that's very different from using other tools that are not necessarily looking for that Apple threat or used to securing or managing Apple in the same way that we can.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to be careful about what tools you pick. Now, I'm not natively a tools solve all problems person, right? I believe deeply in processes and people being the vehicles for excellent security, but you need some partners, you need some tools, and you need to be very cautious about who you bring in and measuring the value of those tools. They need to provide that value in a way that really helps your program and your company. Obviously, in many use cases, Jamf can help with that as well.
Yeah, I suppose it goes back to that education piece, like reading up on the books, because you may be now having to learn a different skill set or things are different with different environments as well, right? So you need to make sure they're educated and you're not just applying the same processes and systems that you've always done if you've now got a new change in devices that are coming in and new threats that are there.
Yeah, I'll mention it a few times that there's no real finish line. There's no victory condition for security. Security is a process. And it's a process of enabling the business to avoid these risks as they emerge. But if your security is perfect today, tomorrow is a new world. There's no end. Something new is going to pop up.
Yeah, if you think your security is perfect, it's nothing like something that comes and breaks that to make you rethink that, right?
Absolutely.
You mentioned as well that it's a team sport. Like it's not just, it's about processes, and with that process comes engaging other teams and making sure you communicate to the whole business. So how do you collaborate with other departments or teams within the organization to promote a culture of security awareness and compliance?
Yeah, I think because security and compliance is a support function, the key to communications is communicate often and with open ears and a keen understanding of your and your business's goals. So for example, we work with the business to manage risk, anything that's going to prevent us from improving our market position or our branding or the trust our customers have. Jamf is always in motion. So our department is always reassessing what it takes to get the job done. It's not winnable. It's this constant iterative struggle against evolving risk. So you can't do that alone. Every single person in the organization has a stake in this and can really contribute. So the short answer is, communicate often and transparently about risks as you see them. Listen closely when other departments engage with you. Believe in them. Believe that humans are an asset. They're not a security risk, right? They're your best chance at seeing what you need to see and solving what you need to solve in a timely manner. So help them succeed to ensure that you can succeed.
Yeah, and I can advocate for all the things that you're doing behind the scenes to support me as an end user, because we've got some programs that we are really innovating on. We're leading the way. Like we've got a BYOD program that we utilize here at Jamf. I joined remotely and was able to have my device shipped to me. I didn't see anyone in the organization for the first year and a half. And it was seamless, yet I was secure and empowered at the same time. And I think
Right out of
that
the
goes
box.
to all the teams, all the things that you do behind the scenes to support us and what we can then offer to customers, I think is fantastic. It certainly does help me be productive, but also be conscious about the security stance that we have to protect the business.
And think about that workflow and all the people involved in it. I mean, certainly security by design is what we're looking for, but that transaction, that secure out of the box, deep involvement from IT, development, engineering, cloud services. There are many people in that chain. So enabling them to succeed at what they're trying to do to build and design better security and privacy, that's really the key to keeping a program afloat.
And I love that you mentioned privacy there. That was one thing I wanted to mention, that I feel confident and I feel empowered, but I also know that my privacy is intact. I use the same Apple device that I use for personal use as I do for work use, and I know that we've got a great way of securing the business data, but also my personal data as well. And I think some people don't like to go down that route, and they think that work is looking at some stuff that they're doing, and therefore they turn to a device that's not managed or a device that is not secure. And that makes it more of a security risk for the organization because they're using shadow devices to sign into corporate applications. And I think there's definitely that balance and education around privacy that the market needs to understand and end users need to understand. And that comes from communication.
Yeah, security folks, we have no interest in that kind of data. I think, perhaps 10 years ago, the security methodology was a little bit different. And the goal was to collect everything, collect all the data, always know everything. Did that data turn out to be useful in the end? Probably not. I think one of the advantages in how we've moved with some tooling, AI/ML, and a lot of those capabilities, it's taking those big data sets and boiling them down to what do you really need to know. So there's only so many ways to break a Mac. Look at those gates. Look at those pieces that could possibly cause you trouble. I don't need to look at a million pieces of data when 100 pieces of data gives me all the value I need.
Yeah, I completely agree. So what advice would you give to people looking to become a CISO or a role in cybersecurity? I know we've got a lot of interest from your RSA talk. Loads of people hung around afterwards to really want to know more from you. But what advice would you give to people looking to get into this game?
Well, security is great. First of all, it's fun. It's entertaining. It's constantly changing, very dynamic. And it really needs more people from every walk of life, from every background. Risk comes from everywhere. So we need all the skills and experience to make it through without trouble. I think the pragmatic answer is, have a goal and start learning. If CISO is your goal, by all means, you can do it. But it's a long journey. What are your skills today? What do you need? If you're starting out, then you can pick an entry point into security from development or compliance, program and project management. Lots of folks come by way of engineering and IT. There are very few genuinely entry-level roles in security. So the key is to build some of those skills. Go back to the NIST CSF guidance where we were talking about recently. Pick out a function, read up on it. Then read up on the next one until you find something engaging. And when you're engaged, go deep on it. You set it up at home, fix it, break it, fix it. Find like-minded folks in your community or online that have an interest in security. There is no set path, but in my view, you need to be on a path and moving in a direction. Continuous, relentless self-improvement is the name of the game in security. You cannot be idle. You do not have to know everything at the beginning, and there's no finish line, but learn everything you can.
I'm an advocate for that. I stepped outside my comfort zone from education into security after being involved in a security education project and definitely pushing myself out the comfort zone, but constantly learning. So I can only advocate for what you're saying there. So
whatever your background is, there's a security problem that needs that experience.
And transferable skills, right? There's always transferable skills that people are not aware of that you're going to need to bring to different roles.
Absolutely.
I think one of the things that scares a lot of people when they go into these or look at security is around privacy regulations, especially with all the different laws and the evolving threat landscape. So, how do you measure and implement and ensure regulatory compliance and data protection, especially around those privacy regulations that you might see in other countries? Especially a lot of businesses now do global business. It means a lot of different things that they need to navigate across the globe. So, how do you approach those?
Yeah, regulatory compliance and data protection, these are mountains. So you need to see it for what it is and get started on that climb. There's at least 80 global privacy regulations. There are dozens of industry or standard frameworks. So do your diligence, really understand the obligations that your company is under. GDPR, SOC, SOC 2, ISO, large problems that need to get broken down into small problems so you can take action. So the core of it, again, is, kind of a broken record here. Go back to your framework of controls. If you start with one, whichever one is the most beneficial to your business, break it down into its smallest components, its individual controls. Controls are requirements in security parlance. Use those like Lego to build what you need to cover more and more requirements. So your goal is to get to a place where when you learn of a new data protection law or a new regulatory framework in whatever business you're doing, or you move into a new regulated market, let's say, you look at the index of controls that you've already completed, all the requirements you've met, all the policies you have in place, you measure the gap. Perhaps your second framework takes 70% of the work, but your fourth framework probably takes 20% of the work. Slowly but surely, you're going to build this flexible program that's defensible and that it covers all the risks appropriate to your business.
I love how you break it down, like someone who's so technical, but you say it in a way that just everyone can understand. And I think when I've heard you present, like you just come across as like you've got all this wealth of knowledge, but anyone can understand that. And I know you talk about networking and you talk about public speaking, and I think that's something that you said doesn't come naturally to you when I was speaking to you before. What advice would you give to people? Because obviously to learn a lot of this, you need to go and network with people. If you don't understand it, you need to reach out and go to these events. But that's outside of people's comfort zone for a lot of people. What advice would you do to help people tackle that by A, networking with people, and B, then going on to public speaking?
Sure. Yeah, public speaking comes naturally to some, and if so, that's great. Put it to great use. For others like me, it's a learned skill, right? You start small. Present where you can in your current role. Find help. If your employer doesn't have opportunities, then there's Toastmasters or other speakers clubs. Get a peer group together and just pose a topic for an hour-long discussion. Your church or your neighborhood council or a meetup on fancy cheese or whatever it is you love. The topic doesn't matter. The only way to get good at public speaking is to do it over and over again. Networking is very much the same. Start small, find a group. In many environments, there's B-sides or InfraGard or other local meetups or trust groups. Ping a few vendors who sell something you think is neat in the security space. See if they do events in your area. See if Jamf does events in your area. The goal is repetition to build a comfort level. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. You can find one event every month to start putting yourself out there to discuss and learn and teach about your interest in the field. It's well worth the time, and you'll build those skills soon enough.
I love that you said if we've got anything that we've got going on at Jamf, because we would love to have people come on and speak on the security lounge. And I think this is a great way to break down some of those barriers because it's a fireside chat. It's me and you on a video conferencing call, but you're speaking to hundreds of people in the background, and that's going to then get generated further. And I think that helps break down some of those barriers that people might have about public speaking. And if anyone wants to do any case studies, if they've got a great security story, reach out to us. We'll happily film you. We'll happily have you help write articles and start to get your voice and your presence out there and build some of that confidence as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know a few questions back you mentioned about AI and machine learning, and I think that's a topic that comes up heavily. And sometimes it comes up on like the dark side, like what's machine learning going to do for, like, an AI going to do for the risk to businesses? But also there's a great way of identifying risks and it being proactive in the approach, right? So how are you seeing more reliance on the adoption of AI and machine learning to help identifying threats quickly and effectively?
Yeah. AI and machine learning are incredibly useful tools. Super interesting. So both sides of the security puzzle, right? Criminals and the defenders, everyone is trying to make an effort to learn and use this technology. Taking large sets of inputs and calling out anomalies in the data is a core security function. Going back pre-computers, it has always been a security function. How do you learn quickly and recognize problems? Jamf, for example, has Miriam, right? It's built to parse threat intelligence feeds at unreal speed. No conventional technology is going to cut it when the stakes are high and the data sets are that enormous. But if you want to analyze all network requests to globally block an attack that you've only seen once, machine learning is the path to that goal. On the flip side, if I'm an evildoer, what vulnerabilities are most likely to be unpatched, on what operating systems, what follow-up exploits are most likely to succeed. I want to tell my evil robot to do that a million times and output the systems that give me the best chance of getting my evil ways. So when new tools are available, you really need to understand what it means for your risk posture on both sides of that equation. Lots of opportunities there.
I think we're seeing more and more how advanced some of these threats are getting. They're becoming more realistic, especially for the low-hanging fruit, like the phishing attempts. AI is making it easier to trick people, and your first line of defense is your workforce, right? So it's how do you make sure that they've educated, and then the tools behind it are that layer in defense, or that second layer of defense, because it's that wrong click. It's understanding what that should look like when they see something come through on their device.
Yeah. And it's exactly that, helping people understand. You don't have to be punitive, right? We've spent the last 30 years teaching everyone to click on links because that is how the modern age works. You can't get too upset when they click on a bad link. Many of these phishing messages, frankly, they're lovely. They're works of art. They look like real humans. They're very persuasive. So, as these AI ML programs are getting better at drafting and refining these phishing messages, for example, you have to move your training in the same way. You have to help your staff understand what to look for, not just in the message, but in the context. It used to be that, the English was broken and the links were often very bad looking, and there were some triggers, right? As those get less and less, and as those phishing messages get better, you just have to do more training, and people need to understand a little bit about the context and the risk. So, it's a process. We're all learning.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Now we're coming up to the end, but if anyone's got any questions, do please throw them into the comment section. We'll happily come on to those in a minute. But before we jump to Q&A, Aaron, I wanted to get your top 3 tips or advice that you would give to companies to start mitigating threats and helping to protect the organization from risk. What would those top 3 tips to be from you?
So step 0 is don't panic. Security is hard. Risk is everywhere. That's true. But the business needs to function. So think it through. Not all risk is equal. Not all risks need addressing in the next 24 hours. Dean Rusk, a great source of security quotes, that if you protect your paper clips and your diamonds with equal vigor, you'll soon have more paper clips and fewer diamonds. So tip number 1 is decide what you care about. Really identify what your diamonds are. What are your treasures? The second is, nobody wants to talk to the Department of No. You have to think about your security program as supporting the business. You are not alone on the wall defending from barbarians. I mean, sometimes maybe that is true, but mostly you're part of a group and everyone wants to do the right thing. So help them understand. So tip number 2, educate and advocate. Pick your battles. And then when you have to say no, it's going to have weight and you can stand your ground. Lastly, number 3, blame is pointless. Mistakes happen. Failure is a great teacher. You might break something. You might have a security incident. In fact, you are going to have a security incident. It is inevitable. Learn from everything. Do what you can to make sure failures can be recovered from, that you avoid the worst outcomes. But number 3 is always move forward and take those lessons with you.
That's brilliant advice. I love the fact that you said don't blame people, because I think that's something that people think, oh, I've clicked on something really bad, I don't want to report it. But actually, if you foster this relationship of tell us if you think something's bad, report it. I think that's how you learn, and people will find risks that you don't know about, and you can start to investigate. And I think it's that full circle of trust that people need to have between end users, security, the tools that they're using. I think it makes it so much easier for everyone.
There is no better training than failure. That person who clicked a bad link and brought it to you and you fixed the issue, that person is now the best trained person you have. You can't do better than that.
Well, that's such valuable insight. Thank you so much for joining and diving into all the things that you do as a CISO and how you tackle each one. I'm sure there's plenty more that we could go and talk about for ages, but I want to make sure we leave some room for some Q&A. So if you have got Q&A, please drop them in the chat now. What I want to ask you that's coming, what is your favorite part of your job as being a CISO? What is the one thing that stands out to you that you love doing?
Interesting question. It's this, maybe not the public speaking part, but it's this opportunity to talk about security in a real way. I think that much of security and much of how you build a program that succeeds over time is about education and learning. So I love engaging with folks. I love talking about security. I love the fact that everybody has a slightly different security problem in their business, but at the same time, any 2 security people can have a conversation and come to a better outcome. It really is a community, and I very much like supporting that community.
And anyone who wants to see you in person and chat to you more, you're going to be at Black Hat in USA, Vegas in August, right? So there'll be a session.
Yep, come on by. I would love to talk.
And also any of those customers or prospects who are looking to come to JNUC, which is our Jamf Nation user conference, which takes place in Austin, Texas this year in September. Come along. I'm sure you'll be there, Aaron, to sort of chat to people as well. So great places to network, great places to chat to us about all things security, find out what we do, what our products do, but also just have an open conversation about security and the stance of your business. It's great to learn from people and network, as you say.
Yep, JNUC is a great opportunity. Set up a little time. I would love to talk to anybody who wants to have a conversation.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable. When I go to shows, being able to talk to other vendors, we walk around, speak to the public, and speak to who's the attendees that are there, finding out what's going on in their business and what threats that they have, and then it's just linking all that together, isn't it? It's making like there is similarities across the board. So I think it's super useful to get out to these events and attend these sessions.
For certain.
So not much coming in on the questions, and we're going to be a bit strapped for time because we want to end at about 2:15. We've got one that's come in. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Bashir, for your question. Can you provide insights into the security measures implemented in Jamf Cloud instances to ensure protection and privacy for customers' data? For example, end-to-end encryption enabled. So that might be one that we can pick up offline, but is there anything that you want to just maybe mention on there, or we can pick it up offline?
I think that obviously we can go into great depth offline, but really it's aligned with the central theme here, end to end. What is the entire process? So when that first person in engineering writes a piece of code that is going to eventually make it into the product, can you take that moment and walk it all the way through the process? Every single piece of that process is private by design, is secure by design. The code is sound, it's well tested. The application is sound, it's well tested. End-to-end encryption, absolutely, from every piece. So cryptographically sound processes, good cryptography, good identity and access control. All those are what lead to applications really earning trust in the marketplace.
Awesome. And Bashir, we can actually send you some more links to some of the stuff we've got on Trust Center and everything else that we can share about more about privacy stance and all those other things as well. But we can follow up with some other questions if you've got more. So thank you for posting that one. Dan Lawrence, it looks like he's going to be at JNUC by the sounds of it. He said, will you have your own session or a brain date at JNUC, Aaron?
Sure. I love brain dates. Brain dates, for context, are short little personal meetings. I think they're fantastic. I love digging into individual problems that folks and companies have to help where I can. Also sessions. I do like to do a few sessions. I usually do one sort of like this about how to transition perhaps from IT into security, or how to manage security for small businesses that don't have dedicated security staff. I tend to have quite a few sessions. Happy to take any suggestions from the audience as well. So let me know what you want to talk about.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan, for that. And Aaron, yep, you'll be there. I know that we've got the catalog that's being in development at the moment. So if you haven't seen any JNUC sessions that you're interested in, there's more coming. We're releasing those. We're working on those at the moment. And if there is something that's missing, brain dates are a great way of actually having that one-to-one chat or a small group chat as well. So if there's something there that you don't see that you want to speak about, don't worry, because we'll have plenty of product people on hand. We'll have Jamf expertise there. And even just having a brain date yourself, if it's something that you want to spin up a brain date for and start to have a discussion with other attendees, then please reach out and let us know. So plenty to chat about at JNUC. Certainly not short of conversation when you're at a Jamf conference. That's about it for questions. So please stay tuned for our next session, which will be in September. There's a link in the chat if you want to go and sign up. If you've missed this, then there will be a recording for this afterwards as well. If you want to go back and watch it, please do. Also, check out our webinars that we offer. So this is our fireside chats, but we do loads and loads of Jamf webinars. They are thought leadership. Some are product related. The ones that we've got coming up are our Risk to Resilience webinar, which is specifically for education customers or those working in education. So please join in and have a look at that. That is on the 18th of July. Again, sign up. If you can't make the sessions, there's 3 sessions, depending on your time zone. We will send you the recording. And then we've also got an Understanding Security Frameworks one. So I'm delivering that on the 20th of July. Sign in, because it's definitely going to be one that we're going to dive in on and go further into security frameworks from what we've spoken about with Aaron today. So thank you so much for what we've got that we've been through and those questions that are coming in. Stephen, there's one that's come up. Integrations between Wonder and Radar, integration and backlog. We'll catch up with you afterwards, but all of our products now have been integrated. Our Radar portal, Jamf Security Cloud, as it's often known as well, is now where we've got Protect and Connect, so we can reach out to you offline and start to speak to you a bit more about those things as well. So thank you very much for reaching out to us. Aaron, thank you so much. Everyone who was tuning in, listening to this, our very own CISO and all-round superstar, thank you so much for joining us today and diving into the role of being a CISO, but more importantly, how well you just elegantly spoke about everything in security and made it super simple for everyone, because I know it's such a hard topic. It's such an overwhelming topic, and you just bring a fresh understanding and goodness to it that I just love. So thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
No, it's great to have you on. And if anyone does want to join and you've got a great security story to share, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. If you've got any questions that we haven't answered or you think about afterwards, please reach out to myself, Aaron, or the wider Jamf team, and you can do that by reaching out to us at the one email address that we've got, which is security.lounge@jamf.com. Thank you so much. Wherever you are in the world, have a great rest of your day. For me, it's the afternoon here in London. Aaron, it's the start of your day, and as being in the future, it's a great day for you. It's very good. It's nice and bright and sunny. If this side of the world is what it's like for you over there, nice sunshine.
Yep, beautiful day for a little security.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great weekend, and any questions you got, please reach out to us. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Take care.